The history of our great nation has not necessarily been peaceful or simple. I think it's easy for us to look at the world we are living in and what's going on around us and think that the world is falling down around us. And it might be, I don't know. But our country has been through so many terrible and horrifying things. Okay, before we were even formed, okay, we had the British helping us when we were here as the colonies to fight the French and Indian War. I don't know about you, but I would not want to be fighting a war against a bunch of Native Americans. Okay, then we had to fight the American Revolution and beat the British Army. How that was even possible with a bunch of people who had no money, a bunch of farm boys, a bunch of teenage farm boys made up our military, and somehow that happened. Then we had to invent this government that had never existed before on the planet. People thought that the whole idea of people who could govern themselves was insane and not even possible. So they dreamed it up, and we had the Articles of Confederation running us for a while, and they realized this isn't working. We need a better government, and started to work on the Constitution. So somehow the North states and Southern states had some serious disagreements, but somehow they worked through this, were able to form that Constitution. All right, so then what's next? We've got maybe a little bit of calm while people are, trying to start life here in the new world. People are starting to spread west a little bit. There are lots of disagreements with Native Americans going on, lots of problems going on with that. Trying to set up infrastructure in towns where there weren't any, clearing land, and then we get to the Civil War. I cannot even imagine living through that period of time. Uh, I have a family farm. One of our family farms, is in the Gettysburg National Park. They lived within sight of the battlefield there, and their farm is part of that national park today. And we don't know a lot about it, but the stories we hear, like the war was coming there, and they throw their stuff in a wagon and they get out of town. And they had planned to go back after the war, and they couldn't because, well, they did. They went back, and there were, I think I don't know, like 8,000 dead bodies or something, like lots. Anyway, they went back and decided, yep, no, no, we're not doing this. And they went and settled further west. So there's the Civil War. There's everyone fighting for rights, even after the Civil War and the Emancipation Proclamation, and people are free, people are fighting for rights, blacks are fighting for rights, women are fighting for rights. We have World War II. I'm sorry, one came first. We have World War One. We have World War II. The Great Depression was in there. We have the Cold War, Vietnam, 9/11, Iraq. We have all these things throughout our history that were a lot, right? So for us to look at our situation right now and think the world is falling apart around us, I feel like is a little bit self centered, and we should check ourselves. We have gotten through a lot of hard things, and we can do this again. But what I want to talk about today is how I have found peace amidst this crazy world. Now, do I live at peace 100% of the time and full? No, like I'm a human and it's not possible. But I feel like, considering what's going on and considering how many people I know are struggling with fear and anxiety and depression and all of that, like I feel like I'm doing pretty good here. And I just thought I'd like to share a little bit about that because maybe it could help somebody. So, several years ago, amidst our world shutting down and all kinds of things changing really quickly overnight, kids being home from school, and you remember this, right? Uh, I started to question a lot of things. There were certain messages being sent very adamantly from everyone around us that this is going on and listen to this and do this and okay. So I started questioning a lot of this, like it just didn't sit well in my gut. And I started questioning it, and I started trying to do some research on some of what was going on at this time. And I realized how hard it is to find real information. It is really hard. It is, okay, so it's really, really difficult to find certain information if it may be considered a controversial issue. So I start realizing this. I dug hard and deep and found what I believed to be the truth about some of what was going on. And when I realized what was actually going on, I started to have some fear and some anxiety because, in my opinion, that was worse than all the stuff on the news. It's like, okay, this over here is like way less okay than all that hot mess on the news. So I did start to have some fear and some anxiety. It wasn't like crippling or anything like that, but I had to figure out how to handle it. And where I went with this is where I have gone in life when life has been tough, is to my faith. Now, we'll probably talk about this in a future one, but I'm going to call myself a bad Christian for the vast majority of my life. Until several years ago, I would consider myself a bad Christian. We can talk more about that later, but at this time, that's where I had to go because I have seen. Why do I believe? Because I've seen things that are beyond any explanation of anyone, beyond the explanation of science, beyond nobody can explain some of these things that I've seen happen in my life. So I believe. And so that's where I had to go when I started to have this fear and anxiety, was to my faith in God. And remind myself through the good book that the Lord is going to take care of us. And I've seen evidence of that in my life when there were things that I didn't think I could get through. And I think we've seen evidence of that in the history of our nation. If you study some of the history, I'll talk about some of these things sometime, but boy, does it look like there were some miracles that have happened that allowed this country to be formed and to exist this long. So I turned to my faith. Here since then, life got really hard for some other reasons, and I kind of got to the point where I felt like I couldn't carry myself anymore. This wasn't because of fear and anxiety, but because of some other stuff. And so the Bible says you're supposed to, I don't know the exact words, but basically die to yourself and start living for Christ. And I don't know, I'd probably never really thought a whole lot about what that was or what that meant. But several years back here, things just got really hard, and I felt like I ran out of strength to do life on my own. And at that time, I went deeper into my faith, and it was kind of like, God, like, whatever you want for me, whatever you're doing here, I don't know, I don't understand, this isn't going well, but whatever you want for me, like, just, I started asking, like, what do you want? What I was yelling sometimes, what do you want from me? Because life was hard, and I was like tired of this being the way it is. And since then, a lot of things have changed for me personally, and I have really got to a place where I trust that, like, no matter what's going on, no matter what happens in this world, I've thought through a lot of possibilities where we're headed. I don't know where we're headed. It may be awesome and beautiful and better than it is now, or it may not be. It may be the other way around, but I trust that no matter what happens, that the Lord is going to take care of his people. So I will share more things in the future to go a little deeper into some of this, but I guess I just like to say, like, if you don't have peace today, to think about what have you built your foundation on, what have you put your trust in. I think this is where my fear and anxiety was coming from several years back, when I realized, I had this realization, like, I've put my trust in things like my bank account. I've put my trust in things like our systems of education. I've put my trust in our government to do what's best for me, and I've put my trust in our medical system. Like, and when I started to realize none of those things are what I thought they were, and like, my bank account, that could disappear tomorrow. Like, things are weird. So I just I had to come to terms with that. And that was where I realized, like, you know what? No matter what happens, no matter if our money disappears tomorrow or somebody starts a war or whatever happens, like, I believe that God is going to take care of me. So think about where you've put your trust if you're struggling today, and if you need to reevaluate where your trust sits and where your foundation is. If you don't know anything about this, if you've never tried to talk to God or anything, our good book tells us, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be opened. If you open your heart and start looking seriously, you will find. So back to our country, miracles that have happened that have helped our country even exist. Our founding, looking at all the hard things our founding fathers did that had never been done before. Like, it's just crazy. This was one giant experiment, this democracy, this, the word isn't coming to me. But how do I think they got through? How do I think they did the amazing and tough things that got us through and led us to this point? They were people of strong, strong faith. And when you have that, you have supernatural power, my friends, to do so much more than you are able to do on your own. Why am I sitting here doing these videos? This has been heavy. This is not something I want to do at all. It's not. But I care about our country, and I felt like the Lord was leading me to do this. And several years back, when I said I felt like I kind of died to myself and started living for the Lord, when I'm like, what do you want from me? What do you want from me? When I felt like he started answering, I knew I cannot question what that answer was. I cannot argue with it. If I want my life to go okay, I must listen and do as I am told. And so I had kind of stepped out in my card making videos about a year ago, talking about life and faith and stuff that's like way outside of my comfort zone. And here recently, I felt like I got my next little nudge of what I'm supposed to be doing. And here it is. So here I am. And what have I learned through these things? When I I heard somebody talk here recently about the idea of faith being like a muscle. And the more you use it, the stronger it grows. And I would totally agree with that, because as I started listening and obeying and doing things that are not really what I want to do, but I'm going to trust that this is what's right for my life, my faith has grown. So when this little nudge came, here I am. I don't know how it's going to go. I don't know who's going to make me mad. I don't know if I'm going to get deleted by these platforms, because that's what they do to some people that they don't like and whatever. But here I am. So I hope something I've said here might help you. While I am mentioning that, I am going to be putting together some resources on my website where you can watch these videos there if you want to, if you don't want to be watching them here. I've asked people to share where you like to get your news updates. I'm trying to get people to listen to a variety of news. I think in general we need to turn off the noise. Turn it off. If people are feeding you misinformation, turn it off. Stop supporting that. But we need to be paying attention to what's going on. It's really important right now. So find a few apps on your phone. You can get little news updates, headlines and stuff, or you can be listening. But I'd like to put together a list of all these resources